DOJ Music Regulations, Mindy Kaling's non-black brother, and do you stand with Rahm? This is the Weekend Readout. Hey everybody, I'm Drexel Hurd, and welcome to the Weekend Readout, the show that recaps important stories in politics, pop culture, and pretty much anything else we've been paying attention to from this week. So, let's read it out. Now, being a music artist in 2015 is tough. I remember buying CD singles with the same track 4 different ways. Now, we've got so many different ways of listening to music, I'm still trying to play catch up to everyone else. The Department of Justice is taking a look at re-regulating how our favorite artists get paid through services like Pandora, Spotify, and now Jay-Z's new music service Tidal. Like HMOs or health maintenance organizations or any middleman, most, if not all, artists get paid through performance rights organizations, which collect royalties on behalf of publishers and songwriters. The DOJ is interested in giving publishers more flexibility in how they sell their songs to those platforms. Some of our favorite artists, led by Melissa Etheridge, have been pushing the government to give artists more negotiating power. They want the option to choose between using a PRO or directly negotiating with the platforms we use to download music. Now, I'm a huge supporter of artists of any dynamic getting paid for their work. The industry is already hard enough without talented people not getting paid for what they deserve. The whole thing stems from a 1940s-era government antitrust consent decree that allows industry stakeholders to weigh in on how royalty rates disputes are decided and whether music publishing houses can expand their licensing capabilities. Right now, music publishers have to choose whether to fully license through two of the U.S.'s biggest PROs, ASCAP and BMI. The Justice Department is also considering imposing a negotiated interim rate to be set immediately when a digital service requests a license before that service can begin playing the requested music. Now, last year alone, Pandora pulled in almost $218 million. Just through friends of mine who are artists, I listened to and seen the residual checks, where they're getting cents for hundreds of downloads on their music, in parts thanks to the middlemen who are taking a fee for doing all the work. Now, I'd like to see them get paid a little more, and so should you. When most people listen to Pandora or whatever platform, we think of the big artists who have millions of dollars. But we forget about the independent artists and songwriters who sometimes do it on their own and just want to be paid a fair share just like everyone else. It may be a double-edged sword, though, and music platforms could either negotiate higher rates, like if you try getting health insurance on your own, or just choose not to do business with an artist distributor at all. Hopefully, the Department of Justice and rates courts can come to a fair consensus and move forward, making sure all artists can make the money to produce quality music. Now, it's already a little tough being black in America, but according to Mindy Kaling's brother, it's easier being an Asian posing as a black guy. This week, Vijay Chokaling on his website, almostblack.com, which was almost the name of this program, posted that he devised a plan years ago to pose as a black man to get into medical school because he felt his undergraduate grades as an Indian American would not have been good enough to get him into any school. His aim? To expose the so-called hypocrisy of affirmative action. To prove his blackness, Chokaling shaved his head, trimmed his long Indian eyelashes, and applied to medical school as a black man. His change in appearance was so startling that his own fraternity brothers apparently couldn't recognize him at first. He even said he went through a litany of things some black males go through on a daily basis, like cop harassment, store clerks accusing him of shoplifting, the usual stuff. With a 3.1 GPA and an OK MCAT score, he knew there was no way he could get into a top medical school. Maybe he should have spent less time trying to be black and more time studying. But I digress. So his plan was to test affirmative action. Ultimately, as a black man, Vijay applied to 22 different medical schools. He interviewed at 11. He was waitlisted at 4 schools and got only into 1. In all of his findings, he stated that affirmative action destroyed the dreams of millions of Indian American, Asian American, and white applicants for employment and higher education. Now, over the years, the Supreme Court has ruled that schools may use race as a way to decide who to admit, but couldn't make that the ultimate determining factor in acceptance. Now, I've always said that one of the misconceptions about affirmative action is that it's exclusively black or favors Latinos. I'd go as far to say that it benefits all minorities in very different ways. which brings to light a problem with Kaling's test. He not one time applied as an Asian American to test his theory. So how could he have known whether or not he would have gotten in on his own ethnicity? One of the schools who admitted him, St. Louis University, stated that his MCAT scores and science grade point average met SLU's criteria for admission at the time, and his race or ethnicity did not factor into the acceptance into the university. Now, Kaling is trying to promote a book, so leaking the most shocking parts of it will definitely drive sales. The problem is that it taints the good work of minority students who do well in school to prove that they are just as smart as their counterparts. No Asian, Latino, or Black student should have to constantly think that their peers believe they got into that school based on race rather than merit. His sister Mindy Kaling from the Mindy Project apparently strongly disagrees with his upcoming book and thinks that it will bring shame to their family. How do you guys feel about diversity in schools and whether or not colleges actually need affirmative action in 2015? Use the hashtag #WeCanReadout and let me know. Now, last week we talked about Ted Cruz's presidential campaign announcement, and this week we were treated with yet another Republican challenger trying to make his way to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, stated his intentions to seek his party's nomination for president, and let me tell you, out of all the possible Republican candidates, Senator Paul was the one I was waiting for. This week's announcement was everything I expected to hear from the senator who led a 2013 filibuster due to the president's drone policy. It was clear, it was concise, it was witty, it attacked both Democrats and Republicans. He stayed on message, steering away from social issues and focusing more on economic and constitutional issues, which is what he's good at. It was an ideal speech for anyone whose pendulum swings right of center, but not right into crazy. But where does he actually stand on a few key issues that may be important to you and I in 2016? Well, he backs an immigration overhaul and granting temporary visas to people who've entered the country illegally, but he would not grant them a path to citizenship. He's opposed to same-sex marriage, but favors a legal framework for LGBT couples. He would leave the entire issue up to the states because he feels the issue offends him and a lot of people. And he believes the United States should only go to war when America is attacked or threatened, but doesn't mind military interventions that could potentially lead to war. Now, they're all very contradictory statements. The issue with people like Rand Paul is that he starts out with things that are progressive, that we all love, but then he follows up with statements that completely backhand the core of the issue. The Today Show's Savannah Guthrie tried to get the senator to answer some of those contradictions this week, and he deflected answering by questioning Savannah's journalistic integrity. Now, that may work for his primary base, but that certainly won't work for a general election. One thing that won't fly in 2016 is smoke and mirrors. In a 24-hour news era where social media dominates, candidates like Paul will be held accountable for their positions. Now, I don't know why he just didn't stick to his past statements or take a breath when being questioned about them. The Today Show was just the beginning. If he can't handle this day's end to his campaign, he's going to have a very long primary. I know I happen to like Rand Paul. I think he's a good politician. Is he presidential? No. But he will certainly give his primary opponents a run for their money. Are you going to stand with Rand? Let me know. Now, this week I'm introducing a new segment where I'll highlight my favorite quote of the week from one of the topics I've already discussed throughout the episode. So here's this week's The Requote. In a heated exchange with Savannah Guthrie this week, Senator Rand Paul interrupted the anchor by saying, "Why don't you let me explain instead of talking over me?" The problem was, Guthrie was actually in the middle of setting up her question with back facts before Paul started talking over her. The senator has a let me finish problem with anchors. Maybe we should explain to Paul how the rules of presidential candidate interviews go before he continues on trying to become president. As with every week, I'll highlight some of the stories I couldn't get to, but that you should know about, so here's this week's Not to Mention. Duke University became the latest NCAA men's championship team, giving Coach K win number 5. CBS's Bob Scheiffer is leaving Face the Nation and retiring after 50 years in our homes. Rolling Stone retracted a story last year from their magazine about a rape on the campus of the University of Virginia. Barry Manilow got married to his longtime partner. A shooting in South Carolina of an unarmed man has left the nation wondering again if cops can be trusted. The Boston bomber was convicted on all 30 counts, which could lead to the death penalty, and Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel won re-election after a long runoff fight. Remember, you can check all the links for all the stories in the info box below. Now, from shootings to retractions to the Boston verdict, one thing is for sure. We all want justice and we all want closure to things. The news is a tough pill to swallow. Anyone watching constantly, like nerds like me, would probably say that, man, this country is on fire. Is it though? I don't think so. I think we live in the youngest democracy in the world, and we do. We're still growing, we're still learning. So take the time to learn and pay attention, and you too may find your own closure on issues or stories that you're interested in. As always, don't forget to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/theweekendreadout, and check out my blog, thereadout365.com, and I'll see you next week. Do you want to know more? Check out thereadout365.com. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week.